Menscape The Podcast with Carl.J. Ashley, and proudly sponsored by the Functional Naturopathic Clinic.
So, good evening and welcome to the October edition of the Menscape Podcast, sponsored by the Functional Naturopathic Clinic in Ennis. This evening's guest is, as you can tell from his name, not a native of these parts. And Antonio Alonso
Barranco, that's right.
I hope I pronounced your name correctly, my friend.
Yes, perfectly.
Good evening and welcome to Menscape.
Good evening, Carl, and it's an honor for me to be here with you.
Yeah, likewise, it's a privilege to be able to interrogate. I mean, to ask you some questions. And for the benefit of the other gents in the Menscape group, obviously for us to get to know one another better, it's a great idea to do these.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So by all means, tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm 48 years old, and I live in Martos, in the province of Jaen. Well known as a capital of the extra virgin olive oil. There are
olive oil.
Thousands and thousands of olive trees, and we are the capital of the production in olive oil.
And this is in the region of Andalucia.
In Andalucia, that's correct. It's in the south part of Spain, and we are near Granada, 1 hour driving, 2 hours from Malaga, 2 hours from Seville, so it's a handy place to live. It's most of the people who come from Madrid has to pass through Jaén, so it's a good place to live. So I have a private academy. I have more than, well, not now, but we manage around 100 students every year, and I teach maths, physical chemics, economics, whatever they need.
Are you teaching English?
No, Patricia is doing that.
Wow.
You know, Patricia is the daughter of my wife, Marta.
Yes.
And she is managing that department, language department. She teaches English and French.
So in Ireland, they have a phrase for when the teenagers are doing extra work outside of the school. It's called grinds. Is that similar to what you're doing, where it's additional tuition for sort of teenagers as opposed to a college?
If they have some problems with their exercises, with homework, they come here and we help them, especially with that subjects.
So you're married?
Not yet, but
you have a partner?
We live together. Yeah.
You have a daughter?
Yes, 4-year Valentina.
Very good.
She's my, I don't know how to say even in Spanish. She's my she's my everything.
I think there's a song that goes along those lines, isn't there?
My everything. I sing very bad.
So is that your main job? Is that a full-time occupation, or do you work in addition to having a college for sort of grinds?
No, I work full-time here.
You're a businessman, I guess, as well, right?
Very small. I'm trying now to get into a public school, but I need to make an exam. Maybe next year, I will have it. But at the moment, I got a certification it's like I'm capable to teach in public schools. So now I have that certification, certificate, and I need to do the exam.
Yeah, so you're looking at teaching for, say, the rest of your career? It's like a vocation.
Yeah, yeah. I have discovered this. I don't know if I should say late, but with 40 something years old. I should say my mom was a teacher, my grandma, some of my aunts, and I used to say, no, I don't want to be a teacher. I know what's going on with children, especially with parents. They're difficult to cope with, and I don't want to. I didn't want to be a teacher, but now I love it. I love it. Being with the children, they teach me a lot every day, and I try to help them as much as I can.
Yeah, this is interesting. I'm sort of proud father to four children, ranging from the eldest, I think now is 21, not far off 22, to 12, or just turned 13 actually. And they are our teachers in the sense that as long as you're open and aware to the learning, the children can be great teachers to us about ourselves. And yeah, even to this day, like even just recently, I took Saoirse out for a bite to eat, and she was telling me about toxic positivity. And I said, so what's that? And she's like, well, it's kind of like when somebody says, come on, cheer up, it's not that bad. And they don't really show any emotional support. They just drop a kind of a comment, oh, you're meant to be positive, or you're meant to be optimistic, without really understanding why you're feeling what you're feeling. And I'm like blown away that this child at the age of 13 has a more advanced and developed emotional development than what I may have even had in my 20s or 30s, let alone at the same age. And she was referring to a movie she'd seen called Inside Out, where there was like it was a Disney movie, and there was these characters in the head or the brain of a girl whose parents had separated, and each of the emotions had a different department or function in the brain, and these towers were crumbling with every new memory or new experience. And she was able to explain to me the concept of toxic positivity in a way that I could understand from her understanding this movie. And at the age of 13, I was just blown away by her emotional maturity and development. I'm not saying all kids that age, because obviously she's advanced beyond her years, but I think the children these days are much more developed and advanced, but herself, as having 3 older siblings as well, would be more developed and advanced. And I'm open to receive that teaching from each of my children. I'm not saying I've got all the answers and I know everything, but I was quite shocked at how advanced her emotional development was compared to my own journey. When I was a kid growing up in Manchester in the 70s, we were just taught boys don't cry. You had to act like you were big and tough and strong, and you didn't have feelings, or you didn't cry, or you didn't get upset. And as someone who's always been quite sensitive, I almost had to hide who I was, or I had to mask or have a defense mechanism to compensate for who I actually was, which was this sensitive, kind of quite bright kind of child who and so yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is my teachers, my children have been my teachers and still continue to be so. Yeah.
Yes, I must say that I love that movie, Inside Out. Inside, because the colors represent perfectly our emotions. Red, the anger. I love that, and I have seen that movie with Valentina. She knows she's 4 years old, and she knows perfectly her emotions. When she is angry, when she is happy, when she is afraid. I have played several times with her in this way.
As a parent, the reality is, I'm afraid, that we're going to pass on some of our shit to our children. And by shit, I mean like unhealed trauma, family trauma, stuff that we inherited from our parents, who even if they loved us and even if they showed us love and support, they still unconsciously or subconsciously managed to pass on to us. And we will in turn do that to our children. And one of my mistakes with my eldest child in particular was I was trying to be the perfect parent. I was trying to be like, you know, the psychology textbooks that I come across in my degree, and reading about what psychologists had said, and ignoring my intuition and going with what it said in a textbook. And now I'm like, wow, why wasn't I trusting my intuition, man? You know, this is the greatest guide. This is the greatest teacher. And if the textbooks can back up your intuition, then fine. But I was guilty of trying to be the perfect parent and relying on somebody else's idea of what I should be doing instead of my own intuition. But over time, with having more children, you obviously become better from the mistakes you've made with your older children. And I would say that's been the case.
It's supposed to be like that. I have always said, for me to be a parent or dad or mom is really difficult. It's I don't know if it's almost impossible, but almost. If you buy a mobile phone, you have your book instructions with instructions. If you go buy a computer, you have a really thick book.
The
in
kids
Chinese,
don't come with a
German.
manual, right?
That's right. That's right. And the most important thing are our children. They come with nothing, just with a small basket, and you have to grab them. And the nurses say, "Well, here I go. Here you go." And I say, "Well, what can I do with this now?" And you have to learn quickly, very quickly. But I try to use my common sense.
If you don't mind me saying, right, you're at a more mature age now.
That's right.
When I had our first child, I was 27. When my mum and dad had me, they were 23. And literally, you've got children having children. Yes. You haven't even defined yourself in the world. And the act of defining and helping a child develop is thrust upon you. And the emotional supports that we have today weren't there in the 70s and 80s. So I do forgive my parents to some degree by virtue of the way that they didn't have necessarily the emotional supports that we may have had when we started having children in the noughties, as it's called, 2000 and 2001. But even there today, it's the same as it was 40 years ago, in that we've departed from the model. The successful model of a society was like the indigenous native tribes, where the child rearing was done by the elders in the community, the grandparents. They're not busy chasing skirt round the block or taking drugs or experimenting with things that you might do in your 20s. They've been there and done that and seen that, and they're settled in themselves in their 50s and 60s. So they're much more qualified to raise the children. But the optimal age physically for childbirthing is in a woman, 19, 20, 21, in a man, maybe 22, 23, 24. So you've got this discrepancy between the optimal physical age for having children and then the optimal mental age for rearing children. And our society has it fucked up in the sense that you've got children rearing children that are still not defined themselves in the world. And by having children sort of later on in your 30s, you're more mature, you're more stable. You might have less energy than what you would have had if you had children in your 20s. So there's always this compensation. And I find it interesting how we've lost our way as a society from the model of the indigenous elders, where what they did works. It works. But unfortunately, those societies and cultures were annihilated and destroyed.
Life is changing quickly, at least in Spain. Women now are working more than maybe 20 years ago. So we have no time, literally. We don't have time to grow up and to take care about our children. So we let other people to be with them. Kindergarten, schools, babysitters, even, and it's a pity. It's a pity. I try to share every moment, to enjoy every moment with Valentina, from the time we get up in the morning to maybe 3:30, almost 4, that I have to start my academy. So I try to enjoy every moment, every moment. If she said to me, Papa, let's play, okay. I never say no. I never say no.
Time is the one currency that we have that we can never get back.
That's right. That's
so
right.
having some perception of that is
I know a lot of people who are regretting about not having spent time with their children. So I don't want that for me.
Mine mostly just don't want to talk to me anymore, but that's another story. So, okay, you mentioned Spain and being Spanish. You mentioned the south of Spain.
Yes.
I had the pleasure of visiting you back, I'd say it was around 2009 or something. You used to live in the north of Spain.
Yes, in Soria. That's right.
In Castilla y León.
Castilla y
de
León.
los Lobos.
That's why. That's because my father was born in Soria, in the north of Spain.
So your dad's from the north.
Yes, yeah. And my mom is from Martos, from here.
And your mom's from the south.
Yeah.
And then you had a brother in Valencia, in the east.
And they met in Soria.
Okay.
My mom was sent to Soria when she was 13, 14 years old, and they met there in Soria.
And do you still have family in Valencia?
Yes, I have my brother. He lives here in Valencia, there. Sorry.
So that's a really stupid question now. How did you end up supporting Real Madrid if your dad's from the north and your mum's from the south?
Because I grew up in Torrejón, in Madrid.
Oh, you grew up in Madrid? Okay.
Yes. My mom was a teacher.
Yeah.
She moved, she worked in Badajoz, in Extremadura, in the west. Then in Cuenca, near Jaen. In Guadalajara, near Madrid. And then her last destination was Torrejón de Ardoz, in Madrid.
There's something about the culture of the south of Spain. I don't know if it's the dark-haired girls with their hips, or whether it's the flamenco music, or the oranges and the olives, but there's just something that speaks to my heart about the culture of Andalucia. It truly is beautiful.
It's totally different. It's,
would you believe me if I told you I learned Spanish from Spanish people working in a factory in Limerick?
Yes,
I learned French in school, I learned German in school, and I learned Spanish in a factory in Limerick.
Yeah, I believe you. With our friend Nuria, a lot of people. Yeah. Good times. Very good times.
I don't have any reading or writing ability because I didn't learn in the classroom, but just the speaking and the listening. So you learn all the rude words first, of course, like any new language, and then you start to develop sort of please and thank you and hello and how are you, and then you develop sort of more complex things. I used to absolutely love, there was a community of Spanish people going back to 2001 to 2003 that were all in Ireland. And what I found fascinating was when I asked them, why did you come to Ireland? And you might include yourself in this. They said to learn English. And I said, well, why didn't you go to England? And they said, oh, we don't like the English.
That's right. That's right. And
so
especially
we came to Ireland to learn English. But then when you listen to English spoken by an English person like myself, all of a sudden you understand me a lot easier than somebody from the bowels of Tipperary or Cork who might have a regional accent that's hard to decipher.
Going to Ireland to learn English is like if you come to Cadiz or to Seville to learn Spanish. It's an adventure. It's an adventure. But I don't regret at all. I spent 2 years, marvelous years in Ireland. Marvelous.
Whereabouts?
In Limerick.
In Limerick?
In Limerick. And we worked in Banta. It was a factory that works for Dell.
Yeah.
Dell produced the computers, and Banta did the packaging, mouses, books, whatever, into the boxes, and then we delivered that boxes to Dell.
What I found amazing about Banta was, even though it was unskilled labor, you could be working next to a DJ, across from a mechanic.
Yes.
You know, on lunch break with a qualified midwife. Everybody had a reason for being there at the time, which was simply just to survive. We needed a job, and here was a job that was a stable income. At the time, my children were 2 years old and 1 year old, and it wasn't about me. It was just about being able to provide for the children. So it was a survival thing. But it was like, in some ways, it was like serving time. I spent 2 years and 2 days in that factory, and I can still go into Limerick today, 20 years later, and bump into someone that I used to work with. We might not remember the names, but we remember the faces.
The faces.
And it was a truly educational
That's
experience for me in Ireland not long, and for you having come to Ireland to learn English. And I wonder how many of your ex-colleagues from Banta might come to Spain, or you might see in Spain. Did you keep in touch, other than with myself, with any people from Ireland?
Not really, Carl. I kept the touch maybe the first year with 5, 7 people.
Yeah.
No more. But after several years, maybe only 2 or 3. You, Nuria, Benny, Donna, but he lives in Ireland, and no more.
And would you like to come back to Ireland? And if so, where would you come to visit?
Well, first of all, my friends, you and Donna, it's like
I moved away from Limerick. I'm in Tipperary now.
Well, I will go to Tipperary first. But I would like Valentina to see where her father worked and lived and enjoy.
Excellent. So we'll put the kettle on for you. We'll get the spare room. We'll get the bed made up for you. You're welcome anytime.
Thank you very much. The same. You have your house here, your home.
I'm gonna into some questions for you, right?
Okay.
And again, for the benefit of the other gents in the Menscape group, just to get to know one another a bit better. Have you ever jumped out of a plane?
No.
Have you ever driven a Ferrari?
No.
Have you ever ridden a horse?
Yes.
Have you children? Yes, you've mentioned Valentina. Any other kids?
Well, my little girl is not my daughter, natural, biological, but it's like my girl, Patricia, my Marta's daughter.
Have you ever eaten an insect?
No. Consciously, no. Consciously, no.
Have you ever walked on hot coals?
Say it again, please.
Have you ever walked on hot coals?
I don't think
It's
so.
like they call it a fire walk.
No. There is a village here near Soria that will walk like that once a year. But no,
Yeah, I think it's the mind over matter thing where you.
I have never tried.
Me neither. Have you ever been abducted by aliens?
No, I don't think so.
Have you ever cheated death?
No. I'm thinking I am a boring guy.
There was one we did. I think it was Pat Barry we had it back in April or May. And he was like, every single one he'd done something. He'd obviously had a very interesting time. Have you ever done any public speaking, should I say?
No.
Have you ever written a book?
Written? No.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. I have written small tales,
Okay.
one or two pages, but that's all. That's all.
What is your favorite song and why?
Wow. Difficult to answer. I have a lot of favorite songs. Well, one of them maybe.
No need to limit it to one.
Muchas.
Yeah.
Well, you know Rascal Flatts? Life is a Highway is from the soundtrack of Cars.
Oh, okay.
My wall now is, you know, Valentina's gustos. I don't know how to say it. Is preferences. So it's cartoons, that kind of.
Preferences songs. Is the correct word. Your English is excellent, my friend.
So Cars now is my favorite film now.
Cars, I used to love that myself. I used to love all those kind of movies. Like there was Finding Nemo, there was Shark Tale, there was Cars, there was Shrek. Like these are amongst my favorite movies of all time, let alone just movies I had to watch when my kids were like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I just used to love these movies. Cars, there was the character of the kind of trailer truck that rescues everybody, kind of quiet and says nothing and just is always like there. What was his name again?
His name in Spanish is Mate. I think it's Mac. Mac is the track.
Yeah.
You mean the in English?
Yeah,
in Spanish is something like tomato, but I think it's tomato or something like that.
Oh, tomato. Yeah. The Cars movie was brilliant, and there's like these kind of lessons. There's like the humor for the kids, and then there's the humor for the grown-ups, and then there's like the moral of the tale. I like seriously, that Shark Tale movie was fantastic, and the one I mentioned, the Finding Nemo. I mean, it was like I just be bawling my eyes out, crying watching these.
Well, I must say what I like most is to see the movie with Valentina here, and both of us wrap ourselves, grabbing with a big hug, and when she speaks all the time in the movies, and I say, "Oh, please, Valentina, be quiet a little bit, please." She's in that stage. Why that? Why this? Why this? Why that?
What's the best book you've ever read and why?
Well, difficult to know. I have this one here. I don't know if you know him. Sinuhe, the Egyptian. Sinuhe, the Egyptian, is Mika Waltari. It's the story about an Egyptian.
That was the only word I could translate was Egyptian. What's the rest
Egyptian.
of it?
Sinuhe. Sinuhe, the Egyptian. It was written by Mika Waltari. Very good book.
What's it about?
There's a story about an Egyptian who became a doctor. He tells all the stuff in Babylonia, all his trips around that area, about the disease, the wars. It's very interesting. It's very, as I say, very natural. It's natural.
And is there something about the Egyptian culture or the land that is Egypt that resonates with you? Have you any kind of past life connection or something you can explain in this life that connects you to Egypt, or it's just a natural thing?
Well, I have read only 150 pages. So the moment it's his life from his birthday, from his birthday, and how he became a doctor, some of his trips around Babylonia, Syria, that area.
And are there any sort of classic texts in Spanish that you learn as a kid? I'm thinking like Don Quixote, or I'm thinking like, is there a cultural equivalent to Shakespeare that everyone's made to familiarize themselves with?
It's really hard to read because it's written in antique Spanish, so sometimes it's really hard. But it's very funny. It's very fun, that book. It has several stories, very fun, very funny. But even the Sancho Panza is the other main character, and he used to use proverbs. That's what I like most. It's a common sense, proverbs from normal people. So I think that's much better than thick books, learning some things.
For sure. So you mentioned the movie Cars there, where I asked you about your favorite song.
Yes.
Any other favorite kind of movies or books, or any books that you'd recommend to the other gents in the Menscape group? Was there any books that you came across that changed your life, for example?
Well, there is a book I have read it recently. Its name is In the Case the Voices Come Again. It's like a very famous actor or presenter, TV presenter in Spain. He crossed the line from sane and insane.
Okay.
He got mad. He went mad. He went literally. So he tells in his book about what he felt when he crossed the line from his point of view. What he felt, what he saw, what he heard, that voices, and he went mentally mad.
And what is it called again?
It's like I don't think it's the translation in English. It's like in the case the voices comes again.
So in Spanish?
Por si las voces vuelven.
And the rough translation into English, when the voices come?
Yeah, something like that.
And the author name?
Ángel Martín.
Ángel Martín.
Martín.
Okay. And is there anything else like that you'd recommend for us to familiarize ourselves with from,
Well,
either the point of view of a book or a movie that had an impact on you, or
well, one movie I love is The Sting.
The Sting.
The Sting. En español, El Golpe.
El
Golpe.
El Golpe.
El Golpe. Marvelous film.
El
Marvelous.
Wolpe.
El Golpe.
And that was with Robert Redford, was it?
Yes, Paul Newman.
Paul Newman and Robert Redford.
Newman.
I've got vague memories of seeing that movie. That was classic. There was a few that they were in either together or separately that were all classics at the end of the 70s. Cool Hand Luke, The Sting. What else was there? The Sting was
Two Men and a Destiny, something like that. I don't know the name.
Set up like a bank heist, wasn't it? And they studied for months the personnel in the bank, who was going in, who was going out. Yes. And the whole thing was like what they call a sting operation. But when you're watching it for the first time, it's kind of quite magical how they present that. They don't make movies like that anymore, do they?
No, I don't think so. I totally agree with you. We have a lot of good movies, but not like that. I love classical movies. The dialogues, the landscapes, and everything.
Yeah, I'm definitely on board with that. I'll go along with the Sting as one of the greatest movies. I don't really go into my own favorites much on this, but one of the books that changed my life was The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, however you pronounce that. Ruiz. The Four Agreements. One of the greatest movies was the Shawshank Redemption. I think everybody's seen that or likes that. We could talk for hours. Sorry?
What's that about?
The Shawshank Redemption is the story of a guy that plans an escape from jail. And Morgan Freeman plays a guy called
Jaen. Okay. Yes.
And the funny thing is, when you first watch it, you can't remember what it's called. It has the strangest title. So you could remember describing the movie to someone, then they'd say, well, what's it called? And they're like, it doesn't resonate, the title of it. But
for me, it's a little bit difficult because sometimes the title is totally different in English and Spanish. For example, Eddie Murphy?
Yeah.
He made a film called Coming to America.
Yes.
So in Spanish, El Príncipe de Zamunda. El Príncipe de Zamunda. It's like Zamunda's Prince, something like that. So it's totally different.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. So before we move on, any other books or movies that you'd recommend for our audience?
Well, for example, a book of I don't remember the writer. She's a girl, but the book was about graphotherapy.
Oh, graphotherapy, right? What's that?
Yeah, it's a book about how your writing, by modifying your writing, you can change your behavior, your attitude,
your personality,
even your personality.
Yeah. What I found was interesting was I study a lot with regards to healing and trauma and the sort of personal journey I've had, the books I've written, and that journey of healing from sort of family trauma. And someone described our personality as the defense mechanisms that we created to cope with the childhood trauma. So, for example, if you became charming, it might be to get attention. Or if you developed a certain trait, it was because of the environment you were in and just the best way to survive, to get your needs met, whether it was food, drink, love, attention, whatever it was. And you can reduce almost every personality trait down to this, which I found fascinating. So, of course, the more you heal from those things, the more your consciousness expands and your personality redevelops and expands as well. So why not through writing as well? Yeah.
Yes. It's not very, there are not a lot of studies about that, but it's a curious thing to know how people can guess how you are depending on your writing.
Tell me, your academy in Martos is called Pitagoras.
Pitagoras, correct. Pitagoras.
Am I right in saying that's named after the Greek philosopher Pythagoras?
Yes, that's right. I didn't know which name for the academy, but a student of mine said to me, "Why not Pythagoras?" And I said, "Why not?" Especially because all of them had to study the Pythagoras theorem. So,
well, this is the thing. In the culture I was raised in, we only came across Pythagoras as some boring dude that came up with this idea of the triangle where you've got, say, the opposite and the adjacent, and the square of each is the sum of, and it's like yawn, triangles, geometry, trigonometry, boring. Next. But then as a student now at the age of 49, I'm relearning Pythagoras as a philosopher, as a mystic, as a scientist. Like, maths was only a small aspect of what this guy did. These ancient Greeks, they went to Egypt to the mystery schools to study, and they became complete in a lot of ways, but yet we're maybe just reduced to hearing about them in the capacity of a mathematical thing. Yeah,
it's a way of living. They used to learn from everything, from the nature, especially from the nature, and they learn about astrology, biology, a lot of subjects. It's not like today. We study only maths, only physics or chemics, but they learn everything.
Yes,
you can see Leonardo da Vinci. He was a fucking genius. Sorry about the about the fucking word. It's my Irish heritage.
So before we get into the quick fire round, what was your best holiday, or what was your best trip abroad, and why?
Well, I will talk about a trip I did by my own to the Alps. I traveled from Jaen to Strasbourg.
Istanbul.
Strasbourg.
Oh, Strasbourg.
It's Strasbourg. It's near. It's in France, but it's near the frontier with Germany.
Correct.
Then I hired a rent-a-car. I went to the Alps, and it was marvelous. Only 2 days, but by my own. And I climbed that mountain, the Mont Blanc.
Really?
Yes.
In 2 days?
Yes, but I did by car. I did it by car.
You drove up the mountain, or you climbed the mountain?
Well, I drove.
A bit of both.
I drove to the mountain, and then I had to walk a little bit, so I could say I climbed.
Wow.
And it was a little bit frustrating when I met a girl there in Strasbourg, and in a restaurant. She was the waiter, and I couldn't speak with her. I speak Spanish and a little bit of English. She could speak French and German, and I couldn't have a conversation with her. And she was really, really beautiful. The only word I could say was a Coke, please. That's all.
What time do you finish, love? Huh?
Say it again.
You wanted to know, what time do you finish, love? What time are you clocking
What
off?
time?
I'm waiting outside, yeah.
Well, it's a international language. Love.
Yeah. And so...
Well, I have a friend. He met a Russian girl. He only spoke Spanish. She only speak Russian, and they flirt. So I don't know how he did it.
Yeah, I'd say like the languages, I've always had an ability to pick up languages. I went to Turkey and I learned Turkish. I went to Sri Lanka and I learned Sinhalese. I did French and German in school. I learned Spanish in Limerick. It was always easy for me to acquire languages just naturally. But when you've got a language that has an entirely different alphabet, like Russian or like Japanese or something, like where do you start? Even trying to learn Irish, the first thing I learned was here's a vowel and you can pronounce it 5 different ways depending on the accent or whatever's over the letter. I said, no way, man, I just don't have time. And this is, you know, unless you have the passion, like a beautiful girl is a good reason to learn.
Yeah, that's right.
Learn the languages. Right. I met a lot of those in Shannon myself when I was selling aircon door to door. I was selling broadband, and you'd be knock, knock, knock on the door, and you meet someone from Slovenia, someone from Poland, someone from Latvia, someone from Belarus, and then in the space of an evening, you could easily have met 8 or 9 different nationalities. Mm-hmm. So I always like to say, you know, teach me something, teach me a word in your language. So I managed to pick up some basic Polish to talk to the beautiful Polish girls that were there. And I haven't really developed it much beyond that. I see, there is an international language like music or meditation or love. There's things that are universal that the languages they don't really need to facilitate, but communication is everything, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
For us,
it's important to have. I don't know. It is necessary to have thousands of words, but just a little bit to have a starting point.
So before we finish up, there's a quick fire round here, and you can just tell me just a 1-word answer. And if you don't understand or you don't want to answer the question, just skip, right? Okay. Aldi or Lidl?
Lidl.
Pizza or Chinese?
Pizza.
Blonde or brunette?
Both.
Hurling or rugby?
Hurling.
Manchester or Liverpool?
Real Madrid.
Brown or pink?
Pink.
Sunrise or sunset?
Both.
Kerry or Dublin?
Kerry.
England or Germany?
Oh. Germany.
Gardening or gym?
Gym.
Boccherini or Echo and the Bunnymen?
Oh, skip.
Red or blue?
Blue.
Yellow or green?
Green.
Philosophy or psychology?
Oof. A little bit of both.
Onions or carrots?
Carrots,
Seaweed or cabbage?
seaweed,
Friday or Sunday?
Friday,
Roses or tulips?
roses,
Salt or pepper?
salt.
Fire or water?
Whoa. It depends on my sense of humor.
Emerald or ruby?
Emerald,
Silver or gold?
silver.
Beer or wine?
It depends on the moment and the company.
Meat or cheese?
Cheese.
I'm surprised you didn't say both, given your previous answers. And finally, beach or forest?
Oof, it's hard to say because my father was born in a village that have a lot of forest, a lot of trees, and I love that. But since I'm in Andalucia, I love beach. So both.
Yeah, that's the whole point in the questions, is it's hard to choose, right?
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes it's easy.
Maybe the answer is a little bit different,
Yeah.
but sometimes it depends on the moment.
So Antonio Alonso Baranjo, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thanks to you, Carl.
It's been a pleasure to reconnect with you, and I look forward to chatting to you soon. And as I say, our door is always open here in Ireland. You're welcome to come and stay, and it'd be lovely to come to Spain and visit you, and we'll check out those beaches. Yeah,
we are looking forward to having you here.
And thanks for your active contributions in the Menscape group. It's always interesting to get your perspective, and as an almost fluent English speaker that was living in Ireland, it's interesting. It's curious,
Thank you to you. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be here with you and having a chat and a tranquila, charla tranquila, tranquil.
So
a friendly chat.
We can agree to disagree about the football. Manchester City will vanquish Real Madrid this season, and thanks for not mentioning the Champions League semi-final from last season, where we were robbed with 2 goals in the last 3 minutes. After a completely dominant performance over the 2 legs, I was glad you won it in the end, because I didn't want want Liverpool to win it for my.
Real Madrid, we have that in our DNA. It's fighting until the end. So sometimes we win, sometimes we lose, but it's a Real Madrid DNA.
Fight till the end.
Fight till the end.
Yeah, the spirit's
always,
there.
Always.
So, hasta la vista, cabrón.
Hasta la vista.
Menscape, the podcast with Carl.J. Ashley.